Just a little over 4 years removed since that fateful night in Trinidad, the U.S. men's national team is within touching distance of clinching a spot at the 2022 World Cup. But first, they'll have to get through a very difficult Panama team in Orlando. Let's talk about it. What's up, guys? My name is Alex. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter. Let's jump right into this video. USA versus Panama. Alright, so right off the bat, the US are coming into this off of a 0-0 draw on the road at Azteca against Mexico. A draw in that stadium is always a good result, though it does feel like the US left 2 extra points on the table. Really had the opportunities to win that game, were the better team for most of the 90 minutes and had the better chances. Of course, Christian Pulisic missing from close range, and then Jordan Pefok missing the easiest chance he'll ever get this season to score a goal. Unfortunately, he missed, but there were a lot of positives to take out of that game. Callan Acosta and Gio Reyna were both really solid. Walker Zimmerman had another huge performance. He's been one of the U.S.'s best and most consistent players throughout World Cup qualifying. So even though we didn't get the 3 points that we maybe could have and should have, there's a lot of positive takeaways from that game. On the other hand, Panama is coming off of maybe their biggest disappointment of qualifying, a 1-1 draw at home against an already eliminated Honduras team. That one is going to sting a lot for them because they are in a fierce battle to get into the top 4. They've been in the top 4 places since day one. Ever since September, they've been in the qualification places, and now as we enter the home stretch, they've fallen out. They've fallen behind Costa Rica. So as I just mentioned, yes, Panama just fell behind Costa Rica. So let's take a look at the live table and what each of these teams have to do in the remaining 2 games to get to Qatar. So at this moment, the US are 3 points clear of 4th place. So a win against Panama combined with El Salvador either tying or beating Costa Rica, that would clinch the U.S.'s spot in the World Cup. And the same goes for Mexico. They're playing Honduras. If Costa Rica fail to win and Mexico win, they will also clinch qualification. Of course, Canada will clinch with any result, any draw, win, whatever against Jamaica. Panama, on the other hand, well, they just need to do better than Costa Rica. So the Costa Rica-El Salvador game is earlier in the day. If Costa Rica win that game, Panama are going to have to win this one to stay alive. And that's really all that's important here, because if Costa Rica do fail to win, then Panama will have a realistic shot because they'll play an already qualified Canada in the last game. And before we jump back into the talk about US-Panama, if the US and Costa Rica do both win, what does the US have to do to qualify? Well, the US has superior goal difference. So even if they lose to Costa Rica on the final day, they would have to lose probably, it depends on the score of both games, it would probably be 4 or 5-0, which is pretty unlikely given that Costa Rica have never scored more than 2 goals in one game throughout all of qualifying. But the US did lose 4-0 in San Jose last time, so I wouldn't be 100% certain, though even that situation does seem relatively unlikely. Back to US-Panama, and these 2 teams met in October in the US's, well, easily their worst performance of qualifying, and it's really not even close. So the US made 7 changes to the starting lineup, and that meant a lot of guys who were key to the team, key to their success throughout qualifying weren't there. Anthony Robinson, due to COVID protocol, their rules with the UK, whatever, couldn't travel, and that was a big loss because George Bello did not have a very good game. Because Yunus Musa got gassed, Weston McKennie was injured. The second half of that game ended up being a double pivot of Leggett and Acosta, which is a pairing that has shown time and time again it really doesn't work when they're both 8s. Giassi Zardes was the striker, and he's been the worst player of qualifying, who's gotten multiple shots, probably, and he scored the own goal. I don't think they gave it as an own goal, but he deflected an Honorable Godoy header, and that was the only goal of the game as Panama defeated the U.S. 1-0, the first time they defeated the U.S. in World Cup qualifying. So now let's talk about the U.S. team, how they're going to set up for this game, how I'd like to see them line up, and how Greg Berhalter will set the team up. Alright, this is my projected lineup for the U.S. men's national team. So the goalkeeper, as I said, we'll just go position by position, will probably be Zach Steffen. He is Greg Berhalter's number one, and with Matt Turner not here, there's really no doubt that he'll be starting. He started at the Azteca. Ethan Horvath maybe had a good shout to start, but didn't start at the Azteca, so I doubt he starts here. The center back pairing of Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman is right now, especially with Chris Richards out, this is the best center back pairing for the U.S. men's national team, and there should be no surprises that these two are starting. That being said, Aaron Long and Eric Palmer-Brown, the two other center backs on the roster, actually had pretty good performances at the Azteca. Aaron Long made some good clearances. He did his job. Eric Palmer-Brown, in an unfamiliar position at right back, actually had a really good showing, filling in at a position he hasn't played in a long time. Anthony Robinson, as I said, has been one of the better players throughout qualifying. There's no doubt that he will start at left back. Right back is interesting because Yedlin got a yellow card in the last game and is suspended. Reggie Cannon got COVID, so he's unavailable. Serginho Dest is injured. He's unavailable. So Greg Berhalter called in Shaq Moore from Tenerife. He's only started one game in qualifying. Funnily enough, that was the Panama away game. But he was pretty good in the Gold Cup. He came off the bench in the Gold Cup final, but started the rest of the Gold Cup games and was in the tournament's best 11. So he'll probably start this game at right back, though there are other options, which we'll come back to in a moment. I think Yunus Musa won't start because even though he went the 90 minutes at Azteca, he looked really tired by the end of that. I'm surprised he went the full 90. And Luca De La Torre will probably be an adequate replacement in that position. Greg Berhalter trusted him with that game against Honduras in February, so I think Luca will come into the starting 11 here because he's very similar to Yunus Musa. They're very similar molds of players. Adams and Acosta both went a long distance in Azteca and did a lot of running and probably are pretty tired, but I think both are capable of starting this game. One thing to note is that Adams is on a yellow card, so there's a possibility that he will be rested in case we need him for the last game, and Acosta would go to the 6, and someone else would come in as the other 8. Again, I don't actually hate that, simply because I think we're going to have a lot of the ball in this game, so if Acosta is the 6, I'm more comfortable with that. Like, I wouldn't necessarily want to not have Adams against a team like Mexico, but when we're going to have the ball against Panama, and I'm expecting them to be a bit more open, I don't hate Acosta being there. I think there's a very good chance that Jesus Ferreira will start. I'm surprised that he didn't start or even get any minutes at the Azteca with the form he's been in for FC Dallas, but I think he'll be the 9. Again, there's a possibility it'll be Jordan Pefok because Berhalter hinted at that in the roster press conference, but his miss against Azteca was borderline unforgivable. I don't really see how he gets another shot starting after that, but you really never know. He's a good target man. If we're going to try and hit crosses in, try and hit balls over the top, maybe he's a guy who can do that. Christian Pulisic will most likely start. I would be shocked if he didn't start. And then Gio Reyna, that impact he had off the bench against Mexico was crazy. Like, he just dribbled through the entire team, had some other really good moments. He was just playing with confidence, and I think a confident Gio Reyna is a great Gio Reyna, and him starting is going to be key to the U.S. succeeding. My changes are very slight. I'd like to see Kellen Acosta start at right back. I know it's not his natural position, but he's filled in there before. I think he'd be capable of doing it, and I would bring in Buzio instead of him as an 8, just because I think Buzio can do the job. I think he's capable of doing it at this level of opposition, especially when we'll have a lot of the ball. And again, we'll have Yunus Musa off the bench if that's someone that we need. The only reason I make that change is because I'm not sure that Shaq Moore necessarily is the guy. I don't really trust him enough to start in such a crucial game. I'd rather have Kellen Acosta at right back. But, yeah. I also wouldn't hate there being another winger like Paul Arriola coming in on the right and then shifting Gio into the midfield. But again, I'm not so sure that that's going to happen. And I'd rather have Gio on the wing rather than a Jordan Morris or something. Especially with Tim Weah out, I like having Gio in that position. It Admittedly, Panama's not a team that I know super well. I haven't followed every game that they've played super closely, but they've been grinding out a lot of results and punching above their weight. I mean, when I first made my initial prediction for the Ocho, I had them in dead last place. I think I only had them predicted to have one win. Like, this was a team that was coming in on a very, very low stock. They went out in the group stage of the Gold Cup. They had a young, inexperienced team. But all credit to Thomas Christensen. He's an excellent coach, and they've gotten results way better than anyone would have expected from them. But that result in Honduras is something that's really going to hurt them. Honduras out, nothing to play for. They didn't even bring all their best players, and they were able to get a point in Panama City. That's got to hurt for Panama, and Panama might come out a little bit desperate, especially if Costa Rica get the job done in the earlier game. Panama will be desperate. For that reason, I think they're going to go with a pretty attacking lineup. They're not necessarily going to sit back in a low block like they did in October and like a lot of the other Central American teams have against the U.S. So I think it's going to be a 4-2-3-1, which is what they ran in Mexico and what they've run in a lot of recent games. Let's run through some of the notable players. Luis Mejia, the goalkeeper, he's been pretty good throughout qualifying. They haven't conceded too many goals. Eric Davis is a big threat at left back. He's a big threat going forward. He's an excellent crosser of the ball. He does play in Slovakia, but he did punish the U.S. in the past, so he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. As for the center back pairing, there's some notability there. Andres Andrade plays for Arminia Bielefeld, so he's actually a teammate of George Bello in the Bundesliga, and he's, I think, their only guy in a top 5 league, and I think he's the first Panamanian to play in the Bundesliga. Fidel Escobar plays in Spain, and Michael Murillo plays for Anderlecht, so this is a team with European pedigree. People don't realize this, but a lot of these guys do play in Europe, a lot more than you would realize. But for the midfield, it's actually an MLS core. Adalberto Carrasquilla plays for the Houston Dynamo. Anibal Godoy is someone you'll be pretty familiar with if you watch MLS. He plays for Nashville. The striker Orlando Blackburn has been a consistent threat throughout qualifying for them. He plays in the Bolivian League, but he's come up big numerous times throughout this cycle and is definitely someone to keep an eye on. If the chances are created for him, he will finish them. Greg Berhalter talked about this a little bit in his pre-match press conference, but their biggest threat is on crosses, and Eric Davis is a particular standout at that. So if they're going to be a threat, I think they're going to attack down the wings, look to put crosses in, and that's how they're going to try and attack us. That's why it's important that the fullbacks have big games, and that's why I would rather have Kellen Acosta than Shaq Moore, because Shaq Moore is a pretty good guy going forward. He can whip the ball in really well. He's shown that throughout the Gold Cup. But at the same time, Kellen Acosta, even if he's playing out of position at fullback, is much better defensively. Even a Tyler Adams, I think, could do that role better than Shaq Moore. But let me know what you think of this game. What's the score going to be? Are we going to clinch qualification on Sunday, or will we have to wait for Wednesday to make that final push and get that ticket punched? But don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and yeah, I'll see you guys hopefully after we've clinched qualification for the Qatar World Cup. Because the U.S. and Panama were in the exact same situation 4 years ago. Like the second to last game they played in Orlando. We won 4-0, but I had a preview of that game, and I'll show you. Who did I want to start in that game? It might have been controversial, though.
Wait for it. This might be controversial. Paul Arriola.